Hello everybody, welcome back to Inside Man United. My name is Rowan Brennan. Thank you very much for joining me, and for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Getting into the news today, we're just going to take a quick little review of the United FA Cup win over Newport, and then get stuck into some of today's headlines. So without further ado, let's take a look at the headlines. Coming up on today's show, we take a look at Manchester United's 4-2 win over Newport, take a look at the good, the bad, and everything in between. Marcus Rashford and his agent brother turned up at Manchester United for crunch talks with Erik ten Hag. So what has happened? Ineos are reportedly drawing up a shortlist of candidates to replace Erik ten Hag should the need arise, with many questions over his recruitment strategy and some of the key players he deemed essential, which Ineos don't. And Arsenal looking like they have stolen the lead in a race for a La Liga central defensive midfielder. Have United missed out? All that coming up. So just to kick things off, just a couple of comments and thoughts from myself on the 4-2 win. A pretty kind of standard day at the office, a very typical United performance, not especially impressive, no one really shining. Even with Anthony's goal and assist, he just seemed to be kind of, largely running around and against opposition that week. Maybe something was always going to break for him. But listen, credit where it's due. The guy got a goal, he got an assist, so very well done to him. Raphael Varane looking quite unconvincing, especially for one of their goals. Bullied, bossed, harassed, and just brushed off the ball for one of their goals, which was alarming, to say the least. Casemiro, largely anonymous in the game. Maybe he didn't have a lot to do, but I don't think anyone really had a chance to shine. It was a game we should have been in control of, get through it without any injuries. It's the biggest match of their careers for the guys at Newport. And, Garnacho getting pelters for how selfish he was, and to be honest, deservedly so. You have to have a really good reason and a very high level of performance and arrogance to take on a shot yourself when there are better options available, because you're essentially sticking your finger up to the rest of the team and saying, I want to take the glory, even if there's a lesser chance of me getting this goal. You're thinking of yourself over the team, which is detrimental. And of course, strikers need to have a selfish streak to an extent, but when you're in the poor vein of form and when you're looking to just close games out, you can't just be thinking of yourself. If you're 3-4-0 up, fine. Yeah, if you're chasing a hat-trick, I get it. But Rasmus Højlund has been largely ignored for the entire season. I don't know what the guy has done. I don't know why Erik ten Hag hasn't been able to get the message through to the wide players that if you don't feed him, you don't start. And United said the same thing, or Ferguson said the same thing to Carrick, Scholes and Hargreaves when it came to Van Persie. It was just, if you don't pass to him, you're not playing. It's that simple. I don't see why that same message can't be delivered from Ten Hag to these wide players. This inverted stuff, while it has its benefits, what it does do is starve your lead striker of any sort of service, which we've seen. 8 goals from Rasmus Højlund this season, 5 of which have been unassisted. He's feeding off scraps, and whatever crumbs are left on the pitch, he tries to get on the end of and snatch himself a goal, because the service has been absolutely fucking appalling from the wide players. I love Garnacho. I've nothing against Anthony. I was very excited when he first arrived, because new shiny toy for that kind of money. You're thinking, Christ, what have we got our hands on here? But the service has been absolutely deplorable, and poor Rasmus Højlund has been running on scraps and crumbs to try and get himself on the score sheet. And he did well yesterday to kind of scrap himself in for a goal. Even his previous goal, was an overrun ball lost by Rashford in the box, and he managed to get on the end of a rebound. It's just not good enough, and I feel very, very sorry for Rasmus Højlund. But at the end of the day, we got the job done. 4-2 win, no replay, no injuries, got through the game. Altay Bayındır was fine. It was a bit of a cracking shot from Newport for their first goal. Bit of a deflection, not a lot he could do about it, but let's see. I'd be very curious to see the kind of headspace Onana is coming back to United in, because his AFCON was an unmitigated disaster for every known reason, whether it was, staying at United longer than he should have, which was ridiculous. Bayindir should have been trusted to play in that game, and Onana should have gone in time to get to play his match. He tried to do everything and ended up, not playing. Second match, didn't make a single save, I think, in the whole tournament. Second match, every shot that was on target went in. Didn't play in the replay the final game against Gambia to qualify. And then, didn't start the game. In the next game, they get knocked out. His cousin replaced him. Now, his cousin with his own bit of a gaff to lose the game 1-0. So maybe that's going to fall on their heads for not playing Onana. But given how he played in the second game, I don't see why that mistake would have been beyond Onana. Maybe it could have been 2 or 3-0 if Onana was in goal. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back from that. But listen, into the next round, nothing majorly worrisome about the performance. Just a little bit of selfishness from the front line and some lapses in concentration on the defence in terms of a game that should have been well in control. All of a sudden is wide open at 2-2. So still a lot of lessons to be learned from a frankly weak-minded team that does not seem to be able to hang on to leads for the life of them, and it always happens within minutes of establishing a lead, and it's very worrying and something that needs to be arrested. But anyway, on to the news. So let's take a look at some of these headlines. So we kick off with the kind of main headline that's just been swirling for the last couple of days, which is Marcus Rashford's continued high level of professionalism this season. So we all know at this stage he was seen partying on the Wednesday and Thursday in a nightclub in Belfast, and then reported in sick for training on Friday, and it has gone down like a fucking lead balloon with the fan base. And like anyone who's watched this channel knows my feelings on Marcus Rashford. I think he's an average player who is capable of brilliance on occasion, but the fact that he is the golden boy and the jewel in the crown at Manchester United is, I think, a damning indictment of where the club is. He's by no means an elite level striker or elite level player. His statistics don't back that up. For anyone that's kind of wondering, a few episodes ago, I did an episode on, Martial is out. Didn't quite happen. Everyone thought he was gone, but anyway, he ended up staying. Sancho was gone, and I said Rashford should be next. And I backed it up with some pretty convincing statistics and information. So please check that out for anyone that's still not on the Marcus out bandwagon. But yet again, for a second time, we've seen disciplinary action being taken against Marcus Rashford. I mean, to be out in the piss for 2 nights, and you go, maybe he wasn't out in the piss, he was drinking water. Listen, he was out in a nightclub 2 nights in a row and then calls in sick on the Friday. So either he was hungover or he just the timing of this sickness is just fucking magical. But it's pathetic. What's happened. And of course, he was seen driving into the training ground with his agent brother to have showdown talks with Ten Hag. Obviously, Ten Hag being asked pre-game what his thoughts on it were, and he was very tight-lipped, saying it's an internal matter, we'll deal with it. Was a disciplinary internal matter. Of course, this was a discipline issue. He definitely wasn't sick. You could tell by the reactions. He fucked work off. That's what he did. He fucked work off. And people go, oh, we've all done it. All his defenders. We've all kind of taken a sickie from work. Listen, when you're getting paid £1.5 million a month to kick a bag of air around a pitch, turn up for fucking work. Okay? I mean, people are struggling enough. You've got an absolute gift of a job, which you've worked your bollocks off to get to this level. And then when the club needs you, is in crisis, you're having an appallingly shit season off the back of getting 375 grand a week contract for getting 6th in the Golden Boot charts. Then you just fuck off work so you can go on the piss in Belfast for 2 days. Cop your fucking shit on, Marcus. Seriously. Get your shit together. I mean, this isn't even acceptable from someone who's banging in 10, 20, 30 goals a season, but you kind of live with it. You can live with your Neymars and your Ronaldinhos and your whoever else. Insert, mad bastard player who likes to party and get fat every now and again. If you're producing on the pitch, you aren't, Marcus, and you don't most seasons. So you're two flash in the pans that you had last season and 4 seasons before. Maybe if I could score some fucking goals and we wouldn't come down on you so hard. So yeah, It goes on here. It was crunch talks with Erik ten Hag. United boss also confirmed that it's now an internal matter. Now, for the first time since allegedly being spotted at the Belfast club, Rashford has been seen turning up to Carrington for his talks with Erik ten Hag. You can see him in the car there, and apparently he was with his brother. There's pictures of him at the nightclub. Get down, get out, more like it, and get on the transfer list and get sold. The tide has turned massively on Marcus Rashford. It was already turning just based on his results and performance, his attitude on the pitch. When you are the example by which Kobbie Mainoo, Rasmus Højlund, even Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Facundo Pellistri, Tiro Malacia, and other players coming into the club like Kim Walla, Dan Gore, Joe Hugel, and players that are looking for inspiration, especially when you've come from the youth team and providing an example of what can happen with hard work and determination, or what can happen when you're at this club when you do the square root of fuck all for the most of 9 years and then get almost 1.5 million quid a month in return. His behavior on the pitch has been poor. His standards on the pitch have been poor. If you can't perform correctly, you at least have to have the right attitude, track back, put in the yards, put in the tackles. If you're having an off day, that's fine, but your mentality can't. The likes of Mo Salah, Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, Eric Cantona, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappe, all these players that people would like to put Marcus Rashford in the conversation with, they don't have off seasons. They don't have off months. They might have an off game. They might have a period of 45 minutes where they're off. These are elite players that are savages in their mentality and how they apply themselves. Marcus Rashford, yet again, just proving to be an absolute dipshit in the same vein as Jesse Lingard, Paul Pogba, Anthony Martial, Jadon Sancho, and now his is the last mask to slip, whereby, you're just one of them as well. A talented young lad who's got an ego way out of control, a bad attitude, and this kind of assumption that they don't need to keep applying themselves in order to take the club forward and to be relied upon and be counted upon as a member of that squad. This kind of shit lets the fans down. It lets the club down. It's actually disrespectful to your opponents in Newport County. It's just disrespectful across the board. And polls have been run on numerous big fan sites. I ran one on Twitter earlier. 90% wanted him gone. The United Stand did a vote where obviously tens of thousands of people were voting. 80 to 90% of people want him gone. People have run out of patience with Marcus Rashford. And if I'm being perfectly honest, with the FFP that we have hanging over our head, the fact that he was free, we owe no money on him, everything we sell him for would be pure profit. I can see Ineos absolutely getting rid of Marcus Rashford and him being the last bastion of inadequacy and underperformance at this club. And he just, goes onto the scrap heap with the other names that I'd mentioned previously of underperforming, overhyped, overpaid prima donnas that don't deserve to have the Manchester United crest on their chest. And you might think this is an overreaction for a kid that just called in a sickie because he was hungover. He should know way better. With the season he's having, with the season the club is having, for you to call in sick when you are on camera, there are witnesses of you being out in the piss in a club days before an FA Cup match. You're entitled to go out. You can't report in sick. This is either one of two things from Marcus Rashford. He is either monstrously dumb, which could be the case, or he has zero fucks left to give regarding this club. To be so blatantly out in the piss, it's like he wanted to be caught. It boggles the mind. But listen, apparently now, Andy Mitten reports, MUFC statement in response to recent media reports about Marcus Rashford. He's taken responsibility for his actions. Congratulations, Marcus. And this has been dealt with as an internal disciplinary matter, which is now closed. He's back in training, will be available for selection on Thursday. There's no fucking way he should be playing on Thursday. Absolutely no way. And this, to me, should be the final straw. What an idiotic move. There's no defending him at all. Even his most ardent defenders are now struggling to kind of, stay on the Marcus Rashford bandwagon. So I hope now you're going to have to keep playing him and act like he's an important part of the squad between now and the end of the season so you can get maximum transfer value out of him. But This, to me, should be, internally at least, the death knell of Marcus Rashford at this club. And we need to start looking at players who are deserving of their weekly wage, deserving of the badge, and who have far more respect for the club and its fans and its opponents than this young man, not so young anymore, has taken it on himself to portray. So I hope serious consequences are waiting for Marcus Rashford off the back of this. On to other news. Someone else who could be potentially on the chopping block is Erik ten Hag with Ineos. So Ineos already have replacements for Erik ten Hag in mind. This is according to Jacques Talbot from Football Transfers. And he goes to say that there are reports now that a shortlist has been drawn up. Now, that's not news. Every club, even the minute you bring in a new manager, you have a list of replacements in case something happens, in case, you know, he slaps the calf lady's arse and you have to get rid of him after a month, or, you know, results are so preposterously bad. You need to have contingencies. So having a list is not really anything to kind of shout about, to be perfectly honest. But what is interesting is Sir Jim Ratcliffe's consortium is baffled by the recruitment made by the Dutchman and believe that a fresh start is needed in the summer. We're told there are major concerns about the players who've been brought in by Ten Hag, and that is something that has been shared by everyone. Mount, why? 70 million for Højlund? Are you out of your fucking mind? 25 million pounds was the scouting report valuation of Antony, and we give them 82 million pounds. We desperately need a 20 to 30 goal a season striker, and we could have had 100 million put aside for Harry Kane, but we blew 130 million on Mason Mount and Rasmus Højlund, with another 82 million on Antony. It's almost as if he was told to make an absolute fucking bags of the transfer windows he's been given. I like Ten Hag. I want him to work out, but it is getting harder and harder and harder to defend this man. It really, really is. Now, I'd love to see him with a fresh squad, give us, you know, a young squad that can take on his ideas, will do what they're told. I think there's still a bit of overpaid, quite seasoned players that, you know, mightn't be pulling the weight in the way they should be, namely Varane, Casemiro, Sancho, Rashford, and potentially others. Onana has not been a success. So yeah, the exit of Jurgen Klopp in the window has hastened the need for a fresh face in the dugout, with it being possible that the Reds will still be competing for similar names, despite reports that the group does not see this season as a write-off. Yes, it fucking is. It would be it would take a huge uptick in displays to see Ten Hag at the helm come the end of the season. It's believed that the only good purchases made by Ten Hag withstanding this season, such as Casemiro and Eriksen, were just obvious choices. I don't think Eriksen was an obvious choice. I actually thought that was quite an astute buy. I mean, he was seen as a leper by a lot of clubs. Like, do you really want to take him on? Now, Brentford were the ones that really took a punt on him, and he did well there. But yeah, again, listen, he's been an established world-class player, or close to world-class for years. So it wasn't exactly an inspired find. There is a want to bring in young English talent and merge that with experienced Premier League players. So yeah, there's talk a lot, obviously, with Branthwaite from Everton, Michael Elise, who obviously is French, but, you know, he spent most of his life in England. So yeah, it looks like those players are the ones they're going to go for. They're looking to fortify United's financial position this year by injecting personal funds into the club, a move that will allow an increase in allowable losses from 15 to 105. So if owners can put 90 million quid into the club, that's allowed into the transfer fee, but it has to be their own money. This is expected to provide United with a substantial boost in their spending capabilities this year, with the club now being able to invest between 200 and 300 million on player acquisitions in the summer. So yeah, Michael Elise, Jared Branthwaite, along with Marcus Edwards, who's seen as a viable replacement for Antony for the first team. So yeah, big moves there. So obviously Ten Hag had his chats with Ratcliffe earlier in the season when that kind of, you know, partial takeover was happening. And obviously they're going to be aligned. Even if Ratcliffe wants to put a gun to the back of his head and pull the trigger at the end of the season, he's still going to act like, oh yeah, you're the man for us. Because, you know, we got to get to the end of the season without Ratcliffe just going, well, or without Ten Hag just going, well, what's the fucking point? I don't give a shit what these guys do. Yeah, be late. Go to Belfast and go on the piss. I don't give a fuck. I'm out of here. So yeah, it doesn't really reveal a lot, those talks, but it would not surprise me, given how many players have gone out on loan, how many players are supposedly up for being sold, it wouldn't surprise me if Ten Hag was just thrown on the scrap heap as well. And they're just going to absolutely rip down the house, manager, players, the whole shag and lot, and begin anew, afresh, with their own ideas, their own people, their own strategy. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. And to be honest, you'd still want and hope and expect your manager to be able to identify good players, good targets to fit his system. I mean, obviously you want directors and people like that to have a say. I mean, famously, everyone's going, oh, Klopp didn't want Salah. He wanted someone else. And yeah, that's cool. That's fine. But Klopp's done really well in some of the other players he's brought in. Ten Hag's transfer strategy, for the most part, has been majoritively duds. Now, you can say he doesn't have a lot to work with. He spent 60 million on Mount, who he didn't need, 82 million on Anthony, who he didn't need. At the time, we still had Greenwood and Sancho, and Pellistri, and Rashford, who could play there as well. It just doesn't make sense. 50 million quid on Onana when you had De Gea. Not to say that De Gea shouldn't have been moved on, but Jesus Christ, man. I mean, if you're going to get rid of De Gea on a free, you better get it fucking right. And he hasn't. So his track record's been appalling, if I'm being honest, with transfers. And it doesn't bode well when your manager is incapable of spotting players that he needs for his own system, when he's essentially got a blank checkbook and he's spunked 200 million on Anthony, Mount and Onana. And 270 million if you want to throw Højlund in on top of that as well. Hasn't exactly been stellar. So finally, we move on to Martin Zubimendi. So I covered this guy on an episode a few weeks back. A very, very sought-after young midfielder. I think it's with Real Sociedad at the moment. Yep. So United showing interest in the player, but it looks like Arsenal are going in there as well. And his preference could be to go to London. So yeah, quiet transfer window for us. It doesn't look like we're going to be bringing anyone in of any reasonable caliber. That's why this season is a write-off. I think United are completely at ease with just getting through this season and just starting new next season. I think there's going to be a case of this season is going to be a trial on who gets to stay and who's going to be sold. That's what this season is for. Everyone's playing for their own personal trophy. Are you going to stay or are you going to be fired? Or if you want to move, play your way into a move, help us get a transfer fee, and then you can fuck off and, steal a living somewhere else. So United like the Sociedad midfielder Zubimendi amid interest from Arsenal, but transfer insider Dean Jones contemplates whether he would choose a move at Old Trafford over the Emirates. Given Ineos' recent minority takeover of the club, Ratcliffe may be persuaded to wait until the summer to splash the cash. Zubimendi will likely remain at Sociedad until the end of the season. I mean, Arsenal, they have Rice, they have Partey still. They don't need a player like this. The only reason they get him now is just to avoid a bidding war in the summer, which is maybe what they'll do. But I don't see this transfer happening for anyone before the summer. And so Ten Hag hasn't welcomed any new arrivals this month, but it is hopeful that sanctioning several departures will clear the wage bill ahead of the summer, which is exactly what they're doing. We've gotten rid of so many players, either on loan, options to buy, pure sales. However, looking ahead to the summer, United could again be prepared to splash the cash. Arsenal remain in pole position to sign Zubimendi with a release clause of 60 million euro. Not the worst, not the best, but again, he seems to be very, very highly thought of. Romano tells Give Me Sport that Bayern Munich could also join Arsenal and Barca in the race for Zubimendi's signature. And he's one of the most sought after young players in world football. There's a huge amount of interest in this young man, and it looks like Arsenal could be a favourite spot of his. Everyone wants to join the league at the moment, but Zubimendi looks like Arsenal could get their man. But again, I'm sure United have 4 or 5 different players lined up as central defensive midfielders to take over from Casemiro or to join in with Menu. Let's see what happens. But still early doors. I think summer is going to have to be when we're looking at these players coming in a little bit more closely. That is it for the news today. So that's it for today's headlines. What do we think? Please, thoughts in the comments section. Yeah, has time run out for Marcus? Do we just need to cash in our chips and get what we can for him? He's at a great age to sell him on, 26, 27, should be hitting his prime. I mean, if we can get, 100 million out of PSG, there's talk of Mbappe now going to Real Madrid. Vinicius Jr. could be on his way to God knows where. I don't know who could afford him or what Real Madrid would want for him. Maybe they'll keep him and bring Mbappe in on a free. move Mbappe into the central position, maybe put Vinicius there. God knows. They could do an Henry with Vinicius and just put him through the middle and have Mbappe feeding him. God knows what can happen there. But for me, it's Rashford out. I want him gone. And I think time is running out for that kid. And what he did this week, I think, just exacerbates and highlights even more the problems that we've known to be there, which is a very bad attitude. He's fallen out of love with the club, maybe with the sport in general, but it's not something I think United fans or the club need to be putting up with any longer. So thank you for the memories, Marcus, but don't let the door hit you on the way out. With regards to Ten Hag recruitment, Ineos, what do we make of that? If he was to go, who would you have come in instead? Nice's manager is doing very well. Could he be taking the step up and coming into the United hot seat? Could it be De Zerbi? Who knows what this Ineos crowd have got lined up. All we know is that what they've been doing so far has been astute, it's been intelligent, it's been quick, it's been subtle, it's been quiet, and it's been impressive. So I'm all for whatever their next move is, and if that comes to the detriment of Erik Ten Hag, so be it. I'd like to see the man work out, but I can also see now why more and more people want him to leave. But again, I will support my manager until the end of the season at least and see how things go. But yeah, a long way to go between now and then, and that FA Cup performance, I think this team, even with our returning players, are far from a finished article. So remains to be seen how we get on between now and the end of the season. And yeah, Mendy, central defensive midfielders, looks like we could lose that to Arsenal, but listen, I think there's going to be a very, very long laundry list of players that we're going to be linked to, and not all of them are going to be coming here. So no real worries there for me. But please, thoughts in the comment section. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, hit like, hit subscribe, hit that notification button, and I will see you on the next one.